Welcome, brothers. This is JK, your brother in this struggle here. Welcome to another episode of Porn Reboot Coach in the Porsche, where I respond to questions from our wonderful YouTube subscribers, brothers who follow us on various forms of social media. I understand that not everybody is able to become a part of our coaching program, and our coaching program is definitely not for everybody. So what I do is I take some time out of my day to respond to your questions. And no, I don't need a fucking Patreon. You don't need to give me some donations to get special answers to your questions. I lived with this out of control sexual behavior for many years, and my job is to help you as much as I can. Today we're going to be answering a question from a brother in the YouTube community. I'm paraphrasing, and he's about 23 years old. He basically is asking that, is it possible for you to end your behavior with pornography while also dealing with the need to date women? And he says that it's pretty challenging, and he feels like there is some sort of conflict of interest there. Here are my thoughts on that. First of all, this is on a case-by-case basis. There are some brothers that I highly recommend that they stay away from dating for a while, simply because it gives them an opportunity to rewire their brain and just stop being so stimulated. I know a lot of brothers use dating apps in order to meet women, and social media and Snapchat and so on and so forth. So in today's day and age, it would behoove you to take a little bit of a break from using these apps. For those of you who use the apps, just be aware that the apps use the same mechanism that is used when you're viewing pornography, which means that each time you swipe, you get a little hit of dopamine. You get that dopamine release. You see a beautiful woman, you chat with her, she gives you some attention, you now are excited about meeting her. But then what happens when you don't meet her, or she ghosts you, or she blocks you for no apparent reason? Well, now that dopamine hit is gone, and you've got to search for another one. A lot of guys just go on swiping and swiping and swiping, but what's really happening is you're using a habit-forming device to just stimulate yourself. You're basically just like a little monkey. But that's what we all are, aren't we? We're all little monkeys doing a little monkey thing on all these apps that these smart developers have created. Once you are at a point, however, that you gain some measure of control over your behavior, if you're using the Porn Reboot system, if you're within our coaching program, that can take up to 90 days. And yeah, brothers who use our free system, the entire system is available on YouTube and on our podcast, gain a measure of control. All right, that's okay. There is nothing wrong with trying to date, as long as you are very wary of the boundaries that you set. What are some of the things that you've got to be wary about, and what are some boundaries that you should set? One of them is obviously with the apps. If you find yourself using too many apps or spending too much time on an app, you either want to back away from that, or you want to set a boundary with that particular app you're using. So for instance, you're like, no matter what, I'm going to only check this app maybe twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening. We also have a dating reboot program that you can get, and within the dating reboot program, we talk more about these skills. We have screen shares where we show how some of our coaches that are dating, how they manage this in their lives. Again, just to give you like a quick insight, the only purpose of chatting with a girl on any of these apps is to get their number. So you want to get them off the app as soon as possible for two reasons. First of all, the longer that you have her on that app, the more she's in an environment where she's being hit on by other guys, she has interests and she has other prospects. And secondly, the longer you are on the app, the more likely you are to slip or relapse or get emotional about one thing or the other. So that's just a little bit of a tip, a little bit of an insight into something we teach within the Dating Reboot program, which is for men who are ending their out-of-control behavior. Another boundary you want to have, well, just to take it a step back, you also want to make sure you don't have notifications for any dating app. And if you find one that can help you build some sort of connection better, it's less of a hookup app and more of I need to express not just my looks and show that I'm attractive, but I also need to be able to do it in words and so on, then I would lean towards that. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to ending your out-of-control behavior, a lot of this is also about learning how to build intimacy. So that would mean that if you find yourself sexualizing a lot on these apps or objectifying a lot, that's a red flag, right? I'm not saying you're not going to do that sometimes, because obviously a lot of these apps are based on how we look. But if you find yourself a little bit too heavy on the objectification and the sexualizing part, then, kind of tone it back a little bit. So discipline with these boundaries. The next thing when it comes to dating, if you want to do it, is you've got to figure out where you stand with emotional control. And I probably should have mentioned this first, because a lot of porn addicts are numb to certain emotions. We have problems identifying emotions, and even when we can identify these emotions, we haven't built up the coping strategies and the skills to deal with these emotions. Our coping strategies usually pornography. So you also want to ask yourself, do I have what it takes to handle dating at this point in my life? Do I go in this spiral of negative emotions when I do not hear back from a woman, or when I get rejected by a woman? Can I handle this emotionally? Because if pornography ends up still being your coping mechanism when you experience rejection and so on, then it just means that you're not ready for the dating world. That's probably the most important thing. A lot of the brothers who are in our implementation program struggle with just dealing with rejection. And a lot of times they're not even being rejected. Just when they're ghosted by a woman, it triggers their feeling of abandonment or neglect, which is one of the things that a lot of brothers medicate with pornography, right? So a woman doesn't respond to you, or stops talking to you, or says something mean to you, or you go on a date and the date seems to go well, but at the end of the date she sends you a text and she goes like, hey, it was really nice meeting you, but I see you more as a brother or more as a friend. You get friend zoned, or worse still, brother or cousin zoned, just horrible. And you feel really bad because your emotions can't handle it. So again, ask yourself, do I have the emotional fortitude to deal with this? Right? And of course, finally, it's the social dynamics, right? I think that when guys go into dating, there's nothing wrong with doing it once you've got some control. So if you realize, all right, like I have some measure of emotional control and I have certain boundaries that I've set up, do you have I call it the social calibration to actually do this the right way? Why do I say social calibration? Well, it's a rough one, but it's the truth. There are a lot of brothers who don't know how to act socially because they've spent so much time online and they have engaged with women in a very sexualized way. I remember even when my social skills were up to a certain point, because I was out there doing the door-to-door sales thing, that was my first career, I was great with working with people in a professional setting. But around women, especially after like 2 drinks, God, I was a fucking idiot because I just didn't know how to have conversations with women. I didn't know how to do things like flirt. I didn't even know how to be neutral without a woman. I mean, put an attractive woman in front of me like 13, 14 years ago. It was only a matter of time before some stupid ass shit came out of my mouth. I would lie about something. I would exaggerate something to the point that she was like, you're full of shit. Or I would say something that was so sexually charged that it was just straight up offensive and disrespectful to the woman. And that was because with women, with guys I was well socially calibrated, but with women, I just wasn't. I didn't know how to act. I didn't even know how to set boundaries around acquaintances and friends, girlfriends, right? You gotta have boundaries with those things, right? Like there's some dudes who are just like, you are friends with your boy's girlfriend, like you're calling her or trying to call her some stupid shit like that. It means that you don't have an understanding of social dynamics, right? So it's a skill set that you need to learn. You can learn it in the Dating Reboot program, but you can also, there are lots of great guys on YouTube that teach men how to interact with women and so on. And you can learn from a lot of these dudes. I don't think you spend way too much time on YouTube anyway, but those are some of the things to consider, brother, if you're thinking of getting into the dating game, right? I don't see anything wrong. First of all, I'm not a big fan of the whole like hard mode shit, like don't date girls during your reboots, don't have sex with anybody. No, I do think that a short break early on just to stabilize things while you're getting the basics down, while you're cleaning house, removing all the trash from your computer, removing all the triggering material, setting up boundaries and so on. I think staying away from sex and dating for a short amount of time is fine, but eventually it's absolutely fine to start the dating process. Make sure you set the right boundaries, make sure that you are socially calibrated, make sure you have emotional control. And the final thing I'm going to say about this topic is that I think it's very, very important to understand the risks of actually not dating in your reboot if you're a single guy. We have had so many brothers in our program. They come in the early reboot, they progress through the program till they're in the late and the maintenance stage, but they swear off women, usually because they're afraid of porn-induced erectile dysfunction. They had a bad or negative experience where, like they were embarrassed in front of a woman, or a woman said something that caused them to be embarrassed because they couldn't keep an erection. And they're like, you know what, I gotta focus on this reboot shit in my life. I gotta fix it first before I date women. And with any other thing, I would understand. But understand that you're also dealing with an out-of-control sexual behavior. And an important part of this is learning intimacy. And I see so many coaches, so many therapists out there completely miss the boat on this one. You have to learn what healthy intimacy is like. And in order to learn what healthy intimacy is like, you need to have another person around you. You're learning how to love yourself. You're learning how to see that you are worthy of love. But obviously, you have to be around other human beings in order to learn this. And there are so many brothers who make wonderful progress, no longer slipping or relapsing. But then, when it comes time to deal with intimacy, all these fears come up. Fears of PIED, fears of rejection, fears of being judged. Because they weren't dealing with it in the 1.5 to 2 years when they should have been dealing with it. And you know the crazy thing? This can often cause them to slip and relapse as well, even though they're in the late and they're in the maintenance stage. The main things that cause you to slip in the maintenance stage of your reboots are not dealing with things that should have been dealt with at earlier stages of your reboot, right? It's not the end of the world. It's just that now you have to go hard mode on your dating. And usually you may not want to go hard mode at that season in your life. Maybe you want to focus on something else in your life. And you're like, ah, shit, because I didn't focus on the dating, now when I want to focus on my finances or something else, I got to deal with this because it's getting in the way of me being in the late and the maintenance stage. But enough said, gentlemen. I could go on this topic forever. But brother, I hope that answered your question. I'm JK, your brother in the struggle. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this episode of Porn Reboot Coach in the Porsche. I will speak to you guys later on in the week. Brothers, if you enjoy these videos, if you are at a stage in your reboot where you're like, JK, this is great. I have a personal situation that I would like to work with you or one of your coaches on, then I highly recommend going down to the links in the description below this video and scheduling a call with one of our reboot strategists to find out if you're a good fit for our program. We also have a wonderful free Facebook community that might be great for you. Think about joining that community as well. There are links to all these resources, including our wonderful course called Rewire Your Desire. There's a link to it below the video in the description. I'll talk to you guys later.